And yeah, I just discovered some things. One of his roommates had called the ambulance, and when he wasn't feeling well, and he apparently had walked to the stretcher. He said, "Oh, I got it." He was feeling, he wasn't unconscious, and went to the stretcher, and I didn't catch. He didn't. I guess he didn't want me to know. I guess he by the time they caught up to him the next day, they had already given him surgery, which I thought was a little unusual because they gave him surgery before contacting any of us. Open heart surgery within one day of going to the hospital. But I guess he must have gone into cardiac arrest, and but I just thought we thought it was a little strange that the hospital didn't contact us, and what we ran into was, I guess they had an issue that we were not blood relatives, and apparently, for whatever reason, Jerry had not been in contact with his relatives for many years. And I guess, this could be a common situation. We have all kinds of refugees and people displaced in their lives for all different reasons, or maybe they don't even have family. And at the time I knew Jerry spoke of family in Colorado, but I was not able to reach them or in touch with them at that time. So I had moved to then petition to be his guardian. I went to the senior center in Las Vegas, and they had told me that I could be his guardian because I was a little bit concerned. I wanted to make sure that he was getting treated, and when I was at Sunrise Hospital, he was at Sunrise Hospital, most of the nurses were very good, and, I felt confident in them. One of the shifts of nurses, involving a male as well, they were a little bit loud for the ICU unit, and I, was concerned, wanted them to keep it down while he was resting, and also they were saying kind of negative things, like they didn't think he was going to make it, nothing else they could do, and things kind of turned from the day before when I was there, which sounded more positive, like he was showing signs of improvement. But I kind of, knowing my background, by the way, I wrote a book called Discover Your Inner Superhero, and with my quantum biofeedback, I'm really adamant and big about positive thoughts and positive thinking, and what we put out, is affirmations. So I was really sensitive to the fact that they were, saying anything negative in his room. I was trying to motion for them to kind of step outside of the hospital room, so I could ask them to, use discernment on the kind of things they were saying and to keep their voices down. Believe it or not, the next thing I knew, I guess they didn't take it right, or they kind of looked at me like, "Who are you?" because I wasn't a blood family member. And security came and got me and took me out of the hospital. So I was kind of in shock because I was the only person there who knew Jerry to represent him. And, I was just trying to look out for his best interest. And of course, I was trying to keep it down. I mean, I wanted them to continue working on Jerry to try to, heal him. But so that's when I went and researched to investigate the Guardian papers, because I felt, he needed somebody to oversee his care that, that knew him. And when I got the Guardian papers, I'm sharing this as you guys might be running into stuff like this too. There was one paper that I had to take back to the hospital that was a statement of incapacity, which the doctor at the hospital had to sign. And so I took that back to the hospital, which I was, supposed to file with the court. And the hospital really gave me the runaround. There was only one doctor that was going to the ICU units once a day, and he said that, and they didn't give me his phone number, his name, or when he was going to be there. They made it very difficult to connect to this doctor. And then when I finally caught up to him a couple days later, the hospital wouldn't sign the paper. And they said it's because they didn't know who I was. And I was like, well, who are you, right? I said, I'm trying to, be Jerry's overseer and guardian, because there's, we don't have a family member here. Anyway, they wouldn't sign it.
Well, Jerry signed this paper?
Well, Jerry was incapacitated.
Okay, so you didn't have anything prior to.
Yeah,
didn't incapacitation.
Yeah,
so
it's
crazy. The legal system is set up to have mud. That's what they do. They make everything as complicated and as muddy as possible, because nobody wants to take any decision and make any moves that may come back and be litigated.
Yeah, they were worried,
And that's a problem with the entire whole structure. And it's been made that way intentionally because lawyers want to throw mud. That's what they do. They make things as complicated as possible, so nobody gets anything done without a massive amount of litigation. When I say litigation, I mean billing hours, because that's what lawyers are all about. They don't care about the word litigation. They care about billing hours. That's what they're all about.
Yeah.
That's the industry and everything else. And now, especially in this town, the judges are now ex-billing people, because they used to be lawyers all themselves for the most part, so they understand the billing. They also understand that the more lawyers can bill in their court, that they get to get campaign contributions back from the lawyers, so that depending on how much a lawyer gives to the judge, that's going to equate from the judge's eyes how favorable that particular lawyer gets treated in his court. So it's a corrupt, out of control, piece of crap system that makes no sense to anybody, and then there's just going to be more and more and more people with all kinds of problems as time goes on. But nobody cares, because the people in charge of the litigation and the billing hours, that's all they're for, is the billing hours. They don't care. They're not going to fix it.
How much am I going to, what's my
retainer? So it's going to have to come from someplace else. It's going to have to come from the people of this country, who are the real bosses of this country, to say, wait a minute, throw out all the junk, get rid of all this crap that's going on in this country, and go from there. And without something like that being put underway and in motion, it's never going to happen. Now, the lawyers, the judges, they have things like the Judiciary Discipline Commission. Well, what do? They're all ex-lawyers, ex-judges, and so forth, sitting on this commission in witness of whatever of other fellow people that are now in the same position that they used to be in. So all that is a cleansing squad that covers up for them. They never find anybody guilty of anything, except the very rare occasions where they are forced to, because the evidence is so overwhelming that they would be crazy and exposed if they didn't. But they'll try everything they can to not hear anything. Yeah. And that's what goes on, because you got the wrong people in enforcement. Now, you try to go down and get somebody to file a charge against, let's say, a judge that breaks the law and creates a Class A felony. Try to get the Attorney General or the DA or anybody to file charges against a sitting judge that did that. He's in high power, this judge. He has a robe. He's done this under the color of law, and he broke a law, a federal code, and nobody does anything about it. Why? Because they're all in on it. They're all not going to hold each other accountable. Yeah. Because that'll be the end. That'll be the first domino to fall, and then they all start falling. And that's what you're up against, is total corruption. So, getting back to your CBS case and everything, this Jerry, what was his relationship to that?
Well, he was part of my support network, but I guess where I was going with in this story that I discovered in the last week is I didn't realize the power of the hospitals and what was going on with these hospitals. I mean, it really was not their jurisdiction to decide who was going to be his guardian. For some reason, I think they were misunderstanding me or concerned I was going to take some assets.
They have no reason to understand anybody.
Well,
they don't have.
But they have to do, they're not a judge in the matter, and all they were supposed to sign is a statement of incapacity. That's it. Then the judge would decide who his guardian is, and that he needed a guardian. And you are allowed to, if somebody doesn't have anybody there, a family member or otherwise, you're allowed to go be their guardian. And they blocked me from doing it. And then it became Saturday that day. The courts were closed. I was guided to call Red Cross, which was kind of interesting. Red Cross is a really wonderful organization. I've had a few different experiences. And anyway, the call center, I called in Olivia, and she was really helpful, telling me to, subpoena the doctor. I told her, well, it's the weekend. And she told me to go to the police. I said, so I went to the police. And then the police actually said that they could not override hospital rules also, but
Well, they're going to cross finger point and just send you anywhere to get rid of you.
yeah.
That's what they do.
But long story short, yeah, I would highly advise everyone, that hospital, if you, run into some kind of problem, it can kind of become a prison. And if you don't have a blood family member and have certain things in order for whatever reason, or even you may have had stuff, we actually did find his family members, but, it can become very difficult. So, I would get your healthcare power of attorney in order.
To make sure that they're in order.
Healthcare power of attorney.
If they should get incapacitated, God forbid, they're out there blowing in the wind.
Yeah.
They got nothing to help them.
Well, I would put all of your circle. I mean, I don't have family members living nearby me, for example. So I think we should be getting our power of attorney, our healthcare power of attorneys in order, and put, a list maybe in order, but also of your friends that are in your circle, people you're working with, anybody who might be, around to help you. I mean, because anyone is going to be better than the state or, and it's not that these people, many of the nurses and whatnot were nice, but they're not going to have the level of caring and oversight, that someone
their hands are tied.
is going to have.
Our illustrious Congress and so forth have absolutely tied everybody's hands into a knot because of these HIPAA regulations.
Yeah, it was the
that
HIPAA regulation.
Congress passed, and when you talk Congress, you're talking about a bunch of inebriates that don't have the first clue about anything, because if they weren't elected to office, they wouldn't be qualified to go down to McDonald's and get a dishwashing job. They are total fools. Absolute idiots.
Yeah, there was no discretion, and laws are created, rules and laws, but they're meant for human beings to, use reasonable.
No, there's no such reason. No, you're using words that aren't part of the language anymore when it comes to anything to do with any legal issues whatsoever. Common sense. One thing a lawyer does, you can tell how long he's been in the process of becoming a lawyer by how much common sense they have left. By the time they get out of school, they have none left. They don't know any common sense whatsoever. And part of that comes from, if you have two students in a law class, the teacher will give them a case, and one lawyer has to argue it this way and one lawyer has to argue it the other way. Neither lawyer might believe in what they're doing because they don't believe in the case, but it doesn't matter. You have to argue it one way or the other. You have to win whether you're right or wrong. That's part of the system. And what happens after so many years of that, you don't know anything anymore. And then you know that you have to pay your light bill, you have to pay your help, you have to pay your water bill, you have to pay all these things that maintaining law office or what have you. And then that takes precedent over everything else. And then you become this billing factory where all you want to do is bill, 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 bill. When you go to eat, you have a watch going off every 10 minutes to make a beep so you know who you're going to bill for that salad you just ate. And that's the way they think.
Yeah.
That's the way they think. And the whole system's been corrupted and it's completely out of whack. You need to reset and start over, because it will never be fixed, because you're asking people that are broken to fix themselves, and that'll never happen. Ever happen.
Yeah.
It's gone on too long and it's gone too far.
Well, yeah, and like the HIPAA laws, I mean, clearly I was there with good intention to just, oversee my friend in some matters. But yeah, also with the laws, these judges and lawyers, and they're losing touch with, the point, the truth, the justice, the merit of the case, and they're caught up in rules. Yeah, and I'm talking to the judge, and I'm like, well, how do I get a copy of, at one point do we get a copy of these insurance documents? How do you enforce a subpoena? And she's sitting there, and keep in mind, this is a legal malpractice case, in a case that was never heard because the lawyer screwed things up. I'm in pro per now on a fee waiver, and she couldn't answer a simple question. No. I had done a subpoena. It was September 30th. I mean, how do we enforce this? When do I get the documents? And she's making it all legal. She's saying, well, you need to get a lawyer. You need to figure this out yourself. You need, and I'm like, well, if you can't ask the judge a simple question.
True incompetency, and a lot of them are incompetent. They don't know the law. And that is as dangerous as I know, but they're all incompetent. They do not know the law. And that is as dangerous as corruption in a way, because when you're incompetent, what happens is a judge under the color of law, will make some ruling, and then you, as the person on the other side of this ruling, if it's an incompetent judge that makes a wrong ruling, you have hoops and hoops and hoops to jump through just because a judge made a mistake. You can't just get that corrected. Even if they've made a mistake in black and white law, you'll never get it corrected because no other judge is going to say a judge made a mistake. That's impossible. They don't make mistakes. They're perfect, but
Yeah.
they're not. They're anything but perfect. And the perfection that they all claim to have creates all this incompetence because they don't even have to be perfect because their feet's never held to the fire, ever. They can never make a mistake. For example, I was just in court a few months ago, and the judge told me that I had a case where my opposition, who lost my original case, they lost. They were a judgment defender. Okay, they lost the case. Now, her lawyer died. So now that estate gets a couple other lawyers for that dead lawyer's estate. Well, they found out that there was this money that this incompetent judge had set aside if I should have the audacity to appeal his illegal ruling. He made a ruling that's void. It's totally illegal. It's against the Supreme Court of the United States. But he made the ruling nevertheless. So I have it under appeal. The fact that I have a ruling under appeal by an issue of law that had been determined by the U.S. Supreme Court should dictate that any lower court should stop and let the appeal happen, right? But these lawyers that don't even have standing in this case come to court to get fees because this judge had reserved $400,000 from a trust estate, which you can't do, to pay lawyer fees if I should appeal the case. Totally illegal, totally illegal. Now, what is the first lesson or thing that the judge says to me? He already decided the case. There's supposed to be a hearing. There was no hearing. He immediately says that he's going to rule against me. And he says, you have to understand somebody. He lectured me from the bench. Lawyers have to be paid. You have to understand that. Lawyers have to be paid. Well, Judge, these goddamn lawyers aren't even in the friggin' case.
No.
Why are we paying them?
No, and I've done a lot of sales jobs where you work on commission. You get paid after you do the work.
And you have to win. You have to make a sale.
And then you get paid. Yes, exactly.
They lost.
Right.
And they weren't even in the case. I mean, it's despicable what's going on. And it's going to take a mountain, I guess, of hammers and sledgehammers over various people's heads to get it straightened out.
Yeah.
Because it's just turmoil. And that's what they survive in. And most other people will just walk away and say the hell with it and go on. But I will spend the rest of my life, and I have a son that'll do the same thing, and we're going to keep getting this out there because it's despicable. And the only way you're going to correct this is get the word out. Because this will happen to everybody sooner or later. Everybody will face something like this because the system's out of control.
Yeah.
And what happens is when you have a bad economy and bad things start happening, the system feeds itself. So you have all these incompetents and all these people that got to pay light bills and they're trying to suck money from everybody. Sooner or later, that pool is going to expand and expand and expand and touch everybody. So you got to nip it in the bud because it'll only get worse and worse. So.
Yeah.
You know, it's I don't know what the solution is other than you have to raise holy hell and you have to go to whatever word you can get out there, however you want to get it out there, because it's despicable. The lawyers, the judges, it's a system that's broken, and it's been controlled by people that are special interests. That's what originally corrupted our judiciary by fixing cases. And then they got so used to the money from these fixes and these special interests that now the whole system's corrupt because the lawyers need money to keep up with the other lawyers that are fixed. So now they all say, well, we all got to be fixed. So they're all corrupt now. That's what happens.
Yeah, and and this other thing, of course, I was in pro per, like I say, representing myself, and the judge was basically, upholding, and they all were, as though you're a lawyer. Now, there's supposed to be what's called a liberal construction rule, where they're supposed to liberally construe, any technicalities that you might miss, when you're in pro per. But apparently they don't use that law or enforce it in California, where they expect you to, dot your I's and cross your T's, as though like a lawyer. Although As for the CBS case, I was ruled against for no reason. I mean, they didn't even give me a reason, even if it was a technicality. So,
well, how do you like a judge telling you
it's like, well, you can at least tell me what I did wrong, right?
So even losing lawyers have to be paid. Now, there's a thing in this country called the loser pays. Well, it's not here. It's nobody gets paid in this system.
Well,
that we
people
have.
need to be paid when you sue to
When
get your
you
settlement
win.
to win your case.
But
I mean,
here, nobody is supposed to get paid. Even if you win, you're not supposed to get paid. And every other country is loser pays. So if you sue somebody and you lose, you have to pay the person's fees that you sued. That's the way it should be. But there's a lobby effort in Washington, D.C., paid for by lawyers, that is so huge and massive that they won't let any legislation go through the Congress where loser pays legislation gets involved. It's all up to the discretion of the judge if you get paid. And if you do get paid, you have to be the prevailing party. You can't be the losing party and get paid. But the real rule is nobody gets paid. So, I mean, it's all set up for lawyers, by lawyers. And people in Congress are all lawyers. So there's your problem, is this has all been corrupted. We've let the hens guard the hen house too long, and now they're all foxes, rather. Foxes guarding the hen. Everybody in Washington are all ex-foxes. Everybody in the whole system's a fox. And that's what makes the money go round and round and round. I equate it to this. Vegas, you come to town and you're a poker player at the Firehouse, where you're the best poker player in Des Moines. Well, you come to Vegas, you're going to teach these guys how to play poker. Well, you walk into one of these dens around here, you're walking into a bunch of people that are usually from Vegas, and they're all pros, and they're all sitting at this table, and you walk in with your clean money from Des Moines. Well, these other people in that table are going to get you because they want you to leave town without your money. Their only goal is to leave your money here so they can all share it, and it'll go around the table and go around and around and become part of the pool that they play with. Now, the dealer in the game that's shuffling the cards, he's the judge. So you're playing against a bunch of lawyers here, and you're this outside guy. You're done. You're finished. You're never going to leave and go home with any money, even though you're the best poker player in the world. It's not going to happen because the system beats you. And that's what we're up against in the legal system. It'll never work. It's broken. It's beyond repair.
yeah, when I talk to lawyers about my case, they don't seem to be concerned if you're right or wrong, or the evidence, the merit of the case. What's the retainer fee? How long is this going to take? Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
How much money do you have?
Yeah, I mean, they're not, it's like, well, what about real law, like practicing law, winning a case?
Totally irrelevant. That's not going to pay their light bill.
I don't think they do real cases anymore.
They don't. It's how much money you have and what kind of a retainer they can get from you.
It's
That's
insane.
all it is.
And I had gone to Lawyers for the Arts at one point here at Well, where they had assigned a pro bono lawyer, because I was in the Screen Actors Guild, where an artist. And anyhow, the lawyer they assigned, well, initially she was gung-ho and with the biofeedback and the whole thing, looking at my case, but then she said she couldn't take it because I couldn't pay her enough to pay off the judges. She said, "Oh no, you would have to pay off the judges." I like $1 million, millions of dollars.
Lawyers go to lunch, and they'll have lunch, and they'll have a case, and they both have different clients. They get together and have a discussion. Well, how much money does your client have, and how much? So, all right, you file this motion, and I'll file this, and that'll lead up, and then that'll lead up, and then that'll lead up. So all they do is they're designing how to get all your money.
Yeah.
I was in court one day, and the bailiff, who all he does is see cases day in and day out, and I was just talking to him. He said, "Well, these things usually end when one side or both sides run out of money. That's when they end." And that's true. That's when they end, is when both sides run out of money. Otherwise, the lawyers keep it going because that's what they're after.
I couldn't believe that. And I said, if that's what you really believe, that, and this is a lawyer talking, that the judges are paid off and you have to pay them off, then you shouldn't practice law. I said, because
you have to pay them campaign contributions where they're elected. In this state, the judges are elected, meaning they need campaign funds to run. So where are they going to get the campaign fund? If you, as someone before the judge, gives them money, that's a bribe. So they can't take that. But if you're a lawyer practicing in their court, you better give that judge campaign contributions, or you won't win a case in your career. Simple as that. And I have evidence and documents showing where that's been said at fundraisers and parties. One judge named Gene Porter had a party in up there in the mountain. What the hell is Big Bear? Whatever that is, Bear Lake or whatever it is in California. Had a get together up there where lawyers were told, you better hurry up and pay up because you got a case pending next week of my case. And I don't see any campaign contribution from you yet. That's sad. It's in the documents.
Well, I don't know for a fact that's true, but I yelled
absolutely
at
it's
this
true.
lawyer and I said,
Use your
look,
common sense.
well, I
You
told
know
her
it's true.
Well, I told her if she really believed that, then she should quit law, because what's the purpose of having a system if everyone's just paid off and there's no
Some lawyers I
justice,
know
there's no
that
laws
do
being
have ethics. I don't know how they were able to maintain their ethics, but they have quit law because of that. I know a few that I've talked to in the last 6 years of my nightmare, and some have told me the truth and have said, and then I have a retired judge that
Well,
I was
if
able to get
there's
to.
not a true legal system involving the laws and enforcing the rules and the laws, then maybe they should quit. I mean, what's the point? We
don't have laws in this country, is what it comes
Well,
down to.
it's true.
They've hijacked the system, and there are no laws.
Yeah.
When you can point to a black and white United States Supreme Court decision, like in my case, is over a trust case. And there was a trust case that was decided by the Supreme Court where Florida could not control trust assets that were held in Delaware. You can't do it because each state has their own sovereignty when it comes to trust. So one state can't seize assets from another state. That also goes back to the local action doctrine, they call it, where there was a case between a guy named Livingston and a guy named Jefferson, as in Thomas Jefferson, our third president. There was a case emanating in Virginia that came over an issue of property in Louisiana. The Virginia court said, wait a minute, this is property in Louisiana. We can't even hear this case. And that developed in the local action doctrine. If you're going to hear a case regarding real property in another state, only that state can adjudicate that particular issue because they control title. No other state can control title. These are black and white issues that go back hundreds of years before the United States was even here. It goes back to England and then Roman days. Trusts go back to the Roman days. And it's in black and white. And you can't beat that. But lawyers and judges falling off the rails will try to grab the money. And they'll make these rulings that are void. You can't do that. But they do it. Then what do? Now you're stuck with this ruling that nobody wants to overturn the ruling. And then what happens? You have 1983 cases where people have stolen your money, your property, and that's by the U.S. Constitution, Article 14. They can't steal your property. Well, that's what courts do when they do these void laws. They're stealing your property. So now you have to go to a 1983 action, which is going to have to filter all the way up to the Supreme Court, and then they only take 80 cases a year. So where do you go from there? The whole system is broken. Yeah. The whole system is to have mud, that nothing ever gets settled, except you have judges like William Gephardt over here. The lawyers have to be paid. So he pays all the lawyers except the winning lawyer. He doesn't pay him, he pays the losing lawyer, because that keeps the ball rolling. So it's crazy. But you can't, the solution is you have more than one Supreme Court. You have more than 9 justices. You might have 9 justices might be the number, but you might have 209 court justices around the country that have a title Supreme Court of the United States. Why are we limited to only one? Why? And they only hear 80 cases when they have thousands that are presented? Why? Hear all thousands. And however many courts it takes to hear them. That's the solution. And does that cost $150 billion to do that, like we just gave back to Iran? No, it doesn't. It costs a few $1 million. That's it. Why do we have this? It's because the foxes guarding the henhouse don't want it. They don't want laws. They want mud. So I don't know what to tell you. I mean, you're up against a hard row to hoe because, unless you have unlimited resources, and you won't have that for long because they'll end up stealing it from you.
Once you're at the U.S. Supreme Court, there's really nowhere else to go. I mean, it's sitting there.
Well, but how
They're
do you
going to
get
either
there?
read it. well, I have a case sitting there. I just filed it, but yeah, it takes time. I had to send 5 times to them before it finally got received. And supposedly, hopefully, they'll look at it. But yeah, these courts and judges have been just denying things for no reason given. And that's where at one point we did pay a lawyer to come in. And this is one that I'm suing now. And he just rolled over. And I said, well, you're supposed to find out why they ruled against me so we can answer, right? And then he got in and did nothing, and then he said, well, the judge doesn't have to give a reason. And I'm like, of course he does.
You can't ask a judge a question like that.
Why did you rule against her? He couldn't ask him.
In my case, the judge had called my lawyer and asked my lawyer what he should do, because he can rule one of 2 ways. He can rule by equity, or he can rule by the law. And if he rules by law, there's going to be a lot of people unhappy. So what? Right? So I told my lawyer, you tell him to rule by the law. That's it. He told my lawyer that I'm making a big mistake.
Yeah, I don't know why they ruled against me. I mean, but here's the thing. If they don't have time, I don't know if it was a caseload, like they don't have time to really look at all the cases, but then I think they need to tell the administrator of the court, look, I've got too many cases, and, I would rather wait a couple years for a ruling and have proper due process than for them to just go and do something without.
And then they're going to hold that over your head
a ruling for no
time
reason. And what do you do with that? I mean,
this Judge Gephardt told me in court the same day, lawyers have to be paid. And then he says, I can understand why you're upset.
What about the clients?
I can understand why you're upset. You lost here in Nevada, and then you went to New Hampshire and you lost there. Well, that language is coming from lawyers that are telling him that. Ex parte communication, because it didn't come from me, and it's not true, because I won here. I'm the prevailing party. So what did I lose? I won. So he just told me a complete fabrication, lie. Where did he get it? He got it from the other lawyer. So that means he talked to them and not to me. So that's supposed to be a canon and an ethic that he violated. Okay? So they're all corrupt. They listen to lawyers that want to be paid. And then they say all lawyers have to be paid. So it's a corrupt system. You'll never get it straightened out until you get them off the bench.
Well, I did actually win my arbitration against this lawyer. In fact, I won every penny where another lawyer ruled against him. So that's a sign of light and positivity. He actually ruled to give me all my money back. Our money back involved where I explained that the lawyer didn't do anything as far as we were concerned, and they agreed. So the arbitrator, but the problem was we had a non-binding, so we had to, now we're at court because you have to then go to court, to enforce it and to go forward. And this judge just keeps striking things down for no reason. And I had, for example, attached an addendum to the amended complaint with a DVD that I made a video, only 11 minutes, because it was a CBS report, so it was very relevant, the information. And she said, oh, you can't attach that to the complaint. You're going to redo this whole thing. And she doesn't seem to recognize, you're in pro per, you're limited in time and resources, you're filing stuff, you're printing stuff, you're putting this stuff together. She should have allowed an amendment as opposed to just trashing everything and making you start over, resending stuff. I mean, this is crazy. And that delays the whole thing for months. So
they have a doctrine called stare decisis in this country, supposedly, where the system's set up that if a decision's already been made in a case with like facts, that a judge shouldn't have to rehear the case if it's already been decided in a way, or he'll rule according to precedent. Because
there's no double jeopardy.
The law.
Yeah.
So why would you waste your time? They call it judiciary economy. If there's been a like case already decided, why would you rule again? You rule the same way it's been ruled before. That way judges don't have to put on their pants.
Maybe that's why they're not looking at the case, because I did appeal it on up. Well, you're allowed to appeal it on up. You can't, you cannot rule the same case twice in another court, but you can appeal it to, there's an appellate court.
Right.
So and then that goes on up to the Supreme Court, but you can't take it to like another state's court or something like that.
But like in my particular deal, if the Supreme Court has already decided an exact same
U.S.
issue,
Supreme Court or Nevada?
U.S. Supreme Court.
And they decided a case?
In Florida to Delaware, that Florida cannot control assets in Delaware. You can't do it. Here, a Nevada judge stole money from a New Hampshire trust. You can't do it. But he did worse than that. When he stole the money from the New Hampshire trust and made a ruling that I had to sell a house in New Hampshire that he had absolutely no control over, no jurisdiction to do that. None whatsoever. And he can't pay lawyers anyway. It's a trust. That's why people make trusts, to stop litigation. So he can't do that. He couldn't do anything, but he ruled that way. So I went to New Hampshire, I sold the house, and I got a cashier's check for the sale of the house. Now that's a double whammy on this judge, because now he can't enforce his ruling, which he couldn't enforce anyways, because I was going to appeal it, and he knew that, so he wouldn't finalize his ruling, because he knew the minute he did, bam, I'm going to appeal it, so he wouldn't finalize the ruling. And then when I grabbed the money, he had no way of getting the money. So what did he do? They got together with the bank, and the bank said, we can't stop payment on a cashier's check unless it's lost, destroyed, or stolen. Okay, it's lost. Well, no, it's not lost. So now they had a problem. The bank was saying he knows it's not lost. Well, let's get some money together, go to the bank with an envelope full of cash, and then the banker will change his tune. Well, he did. The banker got money. Now they're saying the check's lost. So this losing attorney to get paid signed an affidavit saying the check was lost, which was a lie. The judge signs an order dictating that the lawyer signed that affidavit attesting to a fraudulent deal, right? But they were going to get the money from the bank, because then the bank used that court order saying, okay, and they sent the money here to Nevada. And they immediately dispersed it all the way to the lawyers. So this is fraud. Okay, you can't do any of this. None of this can be done. None of it. But they did it. So people tell me, well, they did it. I say, but it's against the law. And it's not only against the law, it's against the United States Supreme Court decision, and it's against United States banking codes, which is bank fraud, which they don't even have to be successful. All they have to do is participate in a scheme to defraud a bank. And by lying to a bank and saying a check's lost when it's not lost, the fraudulent agreement the judge ordered is the fraud. That's a scheme, because that's fraud. So you're done, judge. You need to go to jail. Now who's going to throw him in jail?
This was a state court judge.
State district court judge here in Nevada.
District court, that's a federal court.
No, it's
So
a district
state.
court in the state.
Okay.
But he violated a U.S. law. Okay? So now he supposedly has what they call immunity. But if you violate a known law, you lose your immunity.
Well, then you need to appeal it on up and let the appellate courts.
I have the state Supreme Court, first of all, on the no jurisdiction, because you can't dictate all.
Okay, you went to the state Supreme Court,
Yeah,
and
it's
then what
before the Supreme Court.
Right now.
Up for a decision.
Right now.
Right. But what's before the Supreme Court, I shouldn't even have to go, because the order that he made is void. It's not voidable, it's void, because there's an existing Supreme Court decision from 1958 that refers to a case in 1878 that refers to a case in 1811.
Wow.
So since almost the beginning of this country, which was 1776, the first case that came up about a property dispute was 1811. So it goes all the way back to the beginning of this country's time. Black and white law. So the law, that the ruling that this judge made is not voidable. It's void. It's totally void. So what he did, he couldn't do. So that takes care of the trust problem, because of the United States Supreme Court. His order's void. But now what about the cashier's check? He committed bank fraud, stealing this money. And that's part of a scheme. And that means all the lawyers involved in it that got paid are all part of the scheme. That means that the lawyer that they hired back in New Hampshire...
Did you go to the appellate court in Nevada? I mean, you're at the state...
I'm in the Supreme, and they lowered it to the appellate court. Or they...
What did the appellate court say?
Nothing. It's up for decision.
Oh, right now.
Yeah, they transferred it to the appellate court.
Yeah. You have to go to the state court, then the appellate court, then the Supreme Court. But like you say, I think all the Supreme Courts, if we need more people or more courts, or they should have to look at the cases.
Why should you have the highest court of the country, the U.S. Supreme Court, only hear 80 cases a year? And out of cases like yours that they hear is probably 0.001%. If you do the math and do how many they actually hear,
I don't know, but I can tell you I've sent
Especially
many
over
things
like a
to them,
malpractice.
and initially they sent stuff. Well, and no, I didn't send the malpractice case to them. I sent the original case to them. But initially they sent stuff right back to me without looking at it at all. I mean, they said, oh well, you didn't include the lower court's decision or something, and I said, well, no, it's right in there. Just look at this page. I submitted it exactly according to the format, and there was a table of contents, and it's right in there. They just didn't even open it and look at it. And they said, well, if you send it right back as you sent it to me, we can't accept it. And I said, well, I'm asking you to open it and look at it. I mean, a lot of incompetence. I don't know what.
A cashier's check.
But eventually they finally
check.
did it. But I bent over backwards just to get them to receive it. And this happened more than once. I was told, so we need to contact the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. We need to talk to them about, getting people.
He's on the golf course probably 2 days a week, and they probably hear 80 cases a year. Can you believe 80 cases a year? That's ridiculous.
But yeah, we need more people and competence to receive what we're sending and look at it.
What would happen to this country if you only had one road that went from California to New York? You only got one road, and it's only a 4-lane road. The country would collapse. We'd be taken over from North Korea, for example. They'd be more efficient than we are. How can you have one road going from... But it's the court system.
And I can only imagine. I mean, I really bent over backwards. This happened more than once. They sent stuff right back to me. Then they said they couldn't accept digital media. And it's a CBS News report.
I've had stuff, the font was wrong.
Well, how could they say that? So I included
the
link.
The font has to be the right size.
They just send it right back to you without even opening it, without looking at it, knowing anything about it. And it's like, these are every case that they get. These are individuals.
How does it become a federal case? Your issue, how does it become
a Supreme Court case?
Yeah.
Well, I had appealed it on up through all of the cases eventually end up at the U.S. Supreme Court if you appeal it on up.
It has to be a appeal. It has to be something to do with federal law.
Well, it is libel, slander, yeah, and the fact that the courts
Why isn't it decided by the state?
Again, they didn't give a reason, so I appealed it on up. They never published it either, the reason, because the case was never heard. I never had a trial. I never got a jury. The case was never looked at because...
Well, first of all, the Supreme Court's an appellate court.
The who?
The Supreme Court of the United States is an appellate court.
Yes.
You can't go to them with a case that's fresh. They won't decide it.
Well, they might refer it back down, but they've got to do something with it. They've got to look at it and say, do we hear this case? Why isn't this case heard?
So if you
they
never
need to
had
correct
a case,
it. I have a case, but
it?
but it was not the lawyers that were involved and the judges. I mean, it was not properly handled, where the case was never heard.
So what do you want?
For the case to be heard and
what
justice.
What is it about, though? What do you want?
Well, first of all,
if you win, what do you win?
First of all, we're trying to do a statement of correction because CBS News did a very irresponsible report, or whatever their reasons, corruption, like you said, I really don't know, but they said a lot of things that were not true, and it hurt my business. It hurt a lot of people's business. It hurt healthcare in America. It's very profound, the depths of the lies, and they need to be brought to light and the attention. They need to do a statement of correction. They should apologize. They called the inventor of my device a felon when in fact he's committed no crime. They twisted a story. It's not true. And so, long story short, they called the device illegal and banned in America when in fact it's been registered with the FDA since 1989. I mean, there's nothing illegal about it. It's safe to use. It's registered with the FDA, approved for registration. they've twisted stories, and the fact of the matter is the device works and it helps people, and it's part of any responsible wellness program. We need to have this technology in the hands of, all of the hospitals and medical centers. People need to know about it because it's something to help people with their
let's
health.
say you came up with an absolute definitive, you take a pill and you cure cancer. You're going to have everybody in the world fighting you, the money people, because they don't want to.
Well, that
cure
might be
cancer.
part of,
Right.
I'm
so
just
saying,
putting
who are you
forth the
fighting?
facts of.
Because if you never had a case, like it would have to be, I guess, I don't know, it would be a libel case against the people that are reporting all this false
Well,
documentation.
yeah, slander,
to the news.
defamation, libel,
But
fraud.
there's never been a case on that.
Suing the media. Now, Donald Trump just came out in his last CBS. We looked at him interviewed on CBS, and he himself said, I think that the media lies all the time, and I think that they know it. And it'll be interesting if he gets in office to see if he does anything, because it's. I think he knows that
There was an old
this is
show
happening.
with
But we can't.
Paul Newman and who's that girl that dated Burt
Well, there has to be
Reynolds'
some
role?
degree of accountability. Now, I can see if you're a reporter, if I'm a
Without
reporter.
Malice or something it was called. It was a movie where they libeled this kid of a mafia guy that was in business for himself and 100% legitimate. The newspaper said things about him that weren't true. So he took him whatever, but he did it a smart way. He set up all the people that did this against him, and he set them up and proved something that didn't happen either, but he was able to prove it. And the Justice Department, William Bromley comes in at the end of this movie, and he's going to straighten it out as the Department of Justice, and he's got all the people that work for him that committed felonies, trying to do things not the right way. And I mean, he put an end to it, but before he did that, he looks at Newman and says, "Are you this smart? You set up my whole goddamn department and made them all in a budget. Are you that smart?" Because he destroyed him that way. But he couldn't do it the legal way because they would have destroyed him. And that's what you're up against, is somebody doesn't want this.
Well, that's where this is going. Now, I could appreciate if I was a reporter and you don't know everything about everything. Maybe you make a mistake or you don't get this. We bring it to their attention that, some of your information was in fact not correct. Why would CBS News not want to correct it? I mean, they're supposed to be a third party. The media is supposed to be a third party. They're not. Why would they care?
Oh, God,
they're supposed to just tell the truth of, why would they want to report lies and attack us and not just, correct something?
Liability.
I have no idea. Well, I mean, initially we send a letter and say, we're just looking for a statement of correction and
Incompetence.
apology, but they didn't do it. And
Never
eventually,
admit to make a mistake.
right. So eventually you reach a point where you're like, I have to sue these people because everybody thinks these things are true and they're not. It got to be very bad. And as we got to suing them, they never did correct it, even to this day.
You're on the air.
Hi, this message is intended to contact.
So, yeah, I mean, it's not okay. We can't just have the media saying whatever they want, lying, and having
I
no
don't know
accountability.
how the Supreme Court's going to take a case that's not really a case, though.
Well, okay, yes, it's
Where's
a
your
case.
cause of action?
We
what
had
are you
all kinds of
appealing?
I
Well,
had
what
5
are you
causes of
appealing?
action.
I know, but you don't have it's never been decided.
Well, that's why I appealed it on up. There was never.
What are you appealing? It's never been
Well,
decided.
it was denied, but for no reason. That's why I appealed
What
it.
was denied?
The case. But it was literally for no reason. It just said denied.
So they dismissed the case.
There was for no reason, but there was no reason behind it. It was unclear. They didn't give a reason. That's why I'm appealing it. There's an issue with the media. Even Jesse Ventura, I heard him talking on George Norrie last week, and
Was it dismissed with prejudice?
didn't say. Didn't say there was no information. It was bizarre. Yeah, it just literally, and you can't do that. No, if you're going to make a ruling, I spoke for 20 minutes to the appellate court. There was 5 causes of action. This was, an involved case and story. You wouldn't make a ruling with no explanation and just say denied.
I've seen it, but it's very rare.
Well, this is what happened with me. Now, I saw that Jesse. Now, here's something interesting that I wrote to George Norrie because I said at the California Supreme Court level, the media got together, many of them, ABC, NBC, CNN, LA Times, and they wrote a letter trying to support a ruling against me. Again, this ruling had no reason given, trying to publish it. And they were denied. I don't know why. That's another thing. I don't know why. I thought all rulings would be published. Like, why would a ruling not be published? Maybe the judges didn't want to take responsibility for the ruling because they knew it was a bogus ruling because there was no reason for it. And so, but apparently Jesse Ventura
Well,
has
the dismissal is not setting any precedent, so there's nothing.
Well, there's
published.
no. Well, but all cases have to have a ruling and have a reason.
No, not if it's fixed.
Well, but that's the point. That's why I appealed it on up. So, and I was just saying, Jesse Ventura experienced the same thing. He has some kind of defamation case where you might have followed the news, and somebody wrote in their book things that weren't true, and he sued them, and apparently he won. The jury, he won the case. Apparently the media got together and wrote they're trying to overturn it because they want the right to lie in the news. That's what it's about. I mean, there was absolutely no consciousness with the news and the media about it. I was in shock when I saw that because I thought for sure that all of the other media like NBC, Fox, I would think that they would want to go against CBS if they said lies and would want to, because that's the competition, right? So it's supposed to, if it's a healthy competition, it should be the competition. They should be wanting to go against them and make them hold accountable and make them look bad, right? But that wasn't the case. They all are in it together. They want the right to lie together. I think they might be owned by the same people. And so for that reason, I wrote to the FCC and asked them to investigate. I have not heard back on that, but I think there's a problem. In fact, Jesse Ventura, the same thing. He said there were 300 media outlets that wrote a letter to the court trying to overturn it. So they have no concern about truth, about what the case is about. All they know is they want the right to lie. I mean, that's their only concern. The media, they're in it together. They have no concern about legal or just upholding truth and what that means, how it impacts people, how it even impacts them. I mean, this is I told the judges, I said they have a lot of stress in their lives. This is biofeedback. Don't they want to know?
We've had another case that came in here over a mortgage industry where the Washington Mutual went broke or went out of whatever, FCC took them over, and then Chase Manhattan bought up all these loans supposedly from Washington Mutual, but they don't have any documentation or paperwork to prove that they bought these loans. So now they're trying to enforce the fact that they have these non-paperwork loans against the people that own the property or are living in the houses, and they're trying to foreclose in the houses, but they have no documentation. So the bank has a lot of money, so they fixed the courts now say that, well, in an FCC case where they've done this and that, they don't need any paperwork. So they can just say that you owe them money, and that's fine at this level. But the law says it has to go, the FCC can only make that determination, and no one can go get to the FCC. They have that, so you got this thing going on, no one's gonna take responsibility. So that's the way they want it. Nobody holds anybody accountable.
I'll have to investigate that. I know there was some ongoing class action suits that are still getting appealed on up because there is a problem with, not having the paperwork.
Right.
I know in Vegas.
And there's I forget her name now, but this guy's named Williams. You can ask Steve about it. He's heard the case of the guy reporting it. And it's a huge, huge issue because the ultimate responsible person to straighten this mess out that was created by Congress, demanding that banks take 125% loans to value, putting people in houses that couldn't afford them, and then of course they'll vote for the congressmen and senators that allow them to get a nice free house. So the government, I feel, is responsible. So who's going to have to pay the price of the taxpayers? And that's going to be a hard road to hoe because no one's ever going to rule that way. No judge is ever going to rule that way. And a Supreme Court that's politically oriented by a 5-4 split right now is never going to rule that way. So how do you get to the bottom of this? The government screws up. Who holds the government responsible? Nobody. That's why you need an army bigger than the United States Army, or you're not going to ever get any control.
Well, maybe we need to form a militia, and that's
Well,
what
you
some
need
people
one bigger
are.
than the
If they-
U.S. government.
Yeah, well,
'Cause
that's why
the
we can't
power.
ban guns.
I was
and,
doing a thing
yeah.
in Central America one time, and it came down to this: if I raise this ship that we found with all this treasure on it, who's going to protect it? Well, come to find out, there's all kinds of jurisdictions down there, and you have to have the biggest army to protect it. And then the biggest army is just going to steal it. So what the hell do you do with it?
No, it's crazy. That's where,
It's
you know.
insane. That's the way the world goes. Nothing makes sense anymore because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's where I was going back to my initial story. I was telling you about the hospital. So they proceeded to escort me out 3 times. They banned me from coming to the hospital to see my friend who died and ended up dying in the hospital out that Sunday. And it was absolutely appalling. And I sat there and spoke to the security guards and everyone, and I said, well, why are you escorting me out? Why are they telling me I can't stay? They couldn't give me a reason. I said, well, don't you think that, and just really calm, just like this. I did not raise my voice or anything because, like I say, of course, I wanted them to treat my friend. And in fact, I was just trying to oversee that. And they said, well, they didn't give me a reason. And I said, well, how do you feel about enforcing this? You can see that this person's in ICU and I'm trying to be there for them. If you were in ICU and your family wasn't around and your closest friend is trying to help you and visit you and oversee your care, how would you feel if the hospital wasn't allowing it because of some twisted HIPAA law? And, are you going to enforce that? Or do you think that you want to help support better discretion to recognize maybe something,
then you'll get
something
sued.
isn't quite right here. So yeah, I don't know if I should be suing the hospital. It's kind of a mess.
How many things have you seen on TV where somebody, let's say, gets hit by a car in the middle of New York City, he's lying on the street,
Yeah.
and nobody will go over and help him. They just walk by. Because
Well,
you're afraid to go over and do anything because you'll get sued somehow.
Well, that's when the Red Cross told me to call the police to go in there because
Well,
they
they're not
felt
going to do anything. Police.
I know. The Red Cross was hoping they would. Now, I thought Jerry has a gun. I thought about getting his gun. I don't know, but I just walked right past everyone and I just went in. I'm like, I'm not going to let this HIPAA law keep me from, seeing my friend. I did visit him that day. I insisted. I said, look, give me a couple minutes, and but it was pretty ridiculous. I should have been able to be there for him and.
Well, that's
how
what
they're-
we started talking about.
But that's what I'm saying. Those
before.
hospitals, you got to watch out. 'cause-
Jerry had to do something to make sure that his life was in order before he got in a problem like that.
Yeah.
And I guess you can understand that a little bit, that it's up to the individual to make sure that his life is set up properly, because the laws, the police, the Red Cross, nobody is going to help anybody in a situation like that because of our litigious society. No one wants to get involved with anything. And our illustrious Congress and the laws and everything are there to prevent anything from.
It was like military
There's no common
government,
sense.
being enforced. This hospital, like
I
like
go
army,
back to
they
every society that's ever come along in history, like the Romans. The Romans had a great thing going for a while. They had taken over the world just about, and they used to be producers, and they produced things and so forth, and they created their wealth, and then they could get these ships or whatever they used to take over the world, and armies and what have you, and then they became a nation of consumers and not producers because they were so wealthy. But when they ran out of their own money, they couldn't make any more money because they didn't sell anything, they bought everything.
right.
So then they collapsed. Well, that's what happens. Like in any country, they last about 200. I think we're pushing 250. So we're getting right at the upper limits now of collapse. If it wasn't for the fact that America has so many natural resources and things to prevent would give us more lasting power, we would have collapsed by now. Because every country or every society usually collapses from within because the people destroy what they have. I think our forefathers, when they founded this country, said, well, you've got a good chance at having a, rights and this and that and a republic, whatever the hell the name of it was, if you can keep it. That's what they said 200 some years ago when they founded this country, if you can keep it. Because tyranny's going to get festering, going to take over. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And it's all true. And it's the nature of things. Everything goes sideways after a while because you let things get out of control. And once the drivers of this car get out of control, you can't get them back on the road without complete. Look at the French Revolution. This has happened before. They're cutting off the king's heads and their girlfriends' heads. I mean, that's what happens, revolution. People get out the pitchforks and the sickles. The only way you're going to get it straightened out.
Well,
And
yeah,
then-
I thought, do I get his gun and go down? This is
That's
crazy.
what happens. And what do we want? Dead cops now. And I mean, it's just the whole country's gone crazy because you have no leadership. You don't have a Donald Trump in there saying, wait a minute, this is crazy.
Yeah.
It's not the way it's
well,
going
and
to
people
be.
people using common sense. They're so worried about losing. And that was the conversation I had with that security guard. Well, I've got a family and I need this job and this is I'm taking orders and
It's all
no
excuses.
consciousness.
Yeah, it's all excuses.
Yeah, it's like, but
Or they're not
doing
really
something that's-
excuses. They're all necessities that he may have, but he doesn't want to do anything about it because he's stuck.
yeah.
He's stuck. Everybody in a society
Everybody's
that's
getting
in
their
decline
paycheck, worried about a
is
paycheck
stuck,
instead
and that's
of
the way they do you. They make you dependent upon them,
yeah.
and that's what the liberal
And then
parties
they
and
stops
progressives
from
are trying
them
to
doing
do.
the right thing and using common sense. They're just worried about their paycheck, and that's it.
Any dictatorship around the world, they don't want news. They don't want people to have access to the truth, and they control everything because you can't let the people understand what's really going on because it won't support them, the dictators. And when you get a country that has power and absolute power like we have right now, you've got one part of this government. I got a thing. I'm against parties, totally against parties. What do they do for us? What is this Democrat or Republican Party? What are they? They're corrupt organizations that take your vote, the people you vote for, your elected officials, and they corrupt them, and they buy them. And say you want to get along here in Washington D.C., you're going to do things this way, or you're out. And you take a guy like Joe Lieberman that had been, I guess, in the Senate for a lot of terms, and he was a Democrat, and then he had moderate views over time, and he started supporting some conservative ideas, and then even to the point where a Republican candidate for president was thinking about having him join the ticket as his vice president. Well, Jesus Christ, the Democrats heard that, and they couldn't have that going on, a defector of that magnitude. So they in the next election, they backed with all their money in the Democrat Party, backed his opposition in the primary. And the opposition won. Well, Joe Lieberman, okay, so he ran as an independent and won. So now he's still in the Senate as an independent, and the Democrats got a double slap in the face. Well, Jesus Christ, what's going on here? So that's what needs to be done. You need to make both parties illegal because they're corrupt. What do they do for you? What do? They are controlled by special interests. And what does special interests do for the American people? The middle class. That's why the middle class is getting destroyed and the rich get richer because they're the special interest groups. And they'll get legislation, whatever laws they want passed to make them more money. And they let a little trickle to the middle class, but not much. And then the middle class gets weaker and weaker and weaker. That's every society before us. That's what's happened. So this isn't new.
Yeah.
This all happened before.
Well, they facilitate and organize, having candidates and
The only power we have is the power to vote. As long as we can keep it, like our forefathers.
if there's
said.
no election fraud, we don't even know.
Well,
if we
there,
have-
I was just
I
going to
don't
go
know.
there. When you vote for Sharon Engel, and then you go on down in the machine and you vote, and then you go back to check your machine, and your Engel vote had changed to Reed in the same machine that you're voting on, what is that? And you report it, and what happens? Because the fox guarding the hen house, Harry Reid's not going to investigate it. And that's who just got elected in power. He didn't get elected, he stole power, but he's in power, so who's going to investigate? So this is where the sledgehammers come in, and you have to destroy all the voting machines, and you have to have, you have to surround Washington, D.C., and not let anybody out. Build a wall around Washington. You wanted it, you got it, now you stay there, and we'll run the rest of the country. I mean, what's the solution?
Well, actually, one solution that, and Desiree Dubonnet, the inventor of our device, who now goes as Desiree, was Bill Nelson. We had talked about a computer party where all of the people would vote on all of the issues.
So you don't have a, but you see your downfall is you call it a party.
Well,
Don't call it a
you
party.
just
It
say a new
has to be
system.
the
A new
people.
system, yeah. And then the 99%
Right.
is being heard, and their opinions and thoughts on things would become
Like why
the law.
do you have to qualify in Nevada and California and Oregon and all these states? Why do you have to qualify to be on a ballot that's controlled by the political parties? Why?
Well, yeah, I think they need to do something to have other parties.
Not
Why
parties.
cannot?
Why do you have parties? If you want to run for Congress and I want to run for Congress, it's you and me, and may the best person win. However we're going to win, we're going to have to get the people to vote for us. And maybe you raise money, however, to get your word out. I'll do the same thing. And once we have some sort of a primary or whatever to where we've passed a certain hump, now the federal funds or whatever, if we're running for federal office, come in and take it over from there to where you get the same dollars, I get the same dollars, and then we can go to TV or whatever our budgets, but they're equal budgets. But you get the special interests out. You can't raise money from anybody. So that takes care of that, and they're done and they're gone. But the people, the foxes, are never going to allow that, because while they're in charge, they're not going to allow it. So the grassroots have got to come up from the bottom. It has to be fixed from the bottom up. It'll never be fixed from the top down, because that's the power structure. They're not going to fix something that's broke that they're in power of. No way. So it has to come from the grassroots up. So what we need, and that's what this show, by the way, is transformed into The Herd, and this is Clark, and we have a guest here with us today named Maggie, and we're talking about solutions, so you're welcome to join us on 702-983-0711 and give us your solutions. And what I was about to bring up was we need grassroots organizations and meetings to where we get people together and let them profess their reviews, whatever they may be, let them all be heard, and maybe some people have good ideas, maybe some people have crazy ideas, but when you're talking about crazy things, sometimes it takes a crazy solution. So I'm not going to discount anybody's idea. And my theory is I'll keep track of the ideas. And if you come in and you call in and you want a particular idea, like one of my main ideas is make any party illegal. Now you can petition to the Supreme Court of the United States to have that happen, and people have. And the Supreme Court has weighed in and said parties have First Amendment rights to free speech. That's wrong, because the free speech is infringing upon the people's rights of free speech. So that's backwards. You can't have an organization that supersedes the people's rights by Constitution. The parties aren't in the Constitution. The founding fathers purposely did not put them in the Constitution because they're illegal. That left it to the states. So that's why all the states control the parties, because the federal government can't. But the Supreme Court has weighed in only on presidential elections, because that's the only time the parties become federal, is during a presidential election. But the Supreme Court has to make them illegal organizations. Then that'll trickle down to all the states. Once the Supreme Court weighs in, political parties are illegal everywhere. Or the grassroots organization get together and vote in and demand a ballot, a referendum, that political parties are hereby illegal, and you voted in as the people of this country. Then it doesn't need to go to the Supreme Court. The people have voted. Now, someone may appeal the vote or whatever, try whatever, then maybe it'll go.
Well, the problem is all of the people in Congress who are doing the votes are put there because of the parties who supported them to be there, the Republicans and Democrats.
That's why it has to come from the grassroots up.
Right, and we're going to have to be strategic, because the problem is we have an existing,
We have the
infrastructure.
foxes.
And so we're going to have to little by little come up with a plan on how to vote in some changes and move, because you can't just.
Through the grassroots organizations that
Yeah.
can spread all over the country. You can have a meeting in Denver, you can have one in Tampa, you can have town hall meetings. That's what the Tea Party, I think, did.
Well, the Occupy movement did a lot to,
Right,
get
but-
organized and.
But they fall in their face because the parties destroy them.
Eventually. Yeah.
Well, that's what they do. Now look at Trump. Trump's not really a party guy.
No.
He's as contrary to the party beliefs as anyone can be. Both parties are desperate trying to get rid of him.
Well, that's why he might be the best of the candidates at this
Absolutely,
time, because
absolutely.
he's the
Because
most
what
independent.
we need to do is get rid of the parties. The parties are the problem.
Right.
If you think about it, we will go 90% of the way correcting our problems if we can get rid of the influence of these political parties and just make them illegal.
Yeah, some people are concerned he's a billionaire, can buy everything off, but what they might not be seeing is because he has his own money, he's not getting paid off
Right,
by big pharma or whoever.
I argue with people all the time. I've had several people say, well, I'm not really think that Trump's going to go all the way. I don't really trust him because, he might just bow out. Okay, all right, let's say he does that. Now what? What are you going to vote for Hillary? What difference does it make? If he's not for real and he quits, so what? Look what he's done. He has decimated these parties. They're all running around like a bunch of babies. Why? Because he did it. Wake up. Wake up. Don't stop worrying about whether he's going to quit or not. I guarantee you he will never quit. He's not a quitter. Once he takes something on, he'll see it through.
Well, I mean, I guess we cross that road when it happens, but it doesn't look like.
Why are you worried about it?
I'm not. I don't. It doesn't look like he's going anywhere. Yeah, I don't. It doesn't look like he's going anywhere.
So, okay.
Well, it is early in the campaign. I don't know if anybody else will be jumping in, but yeah, I mean, it looks like he's here to stay.
Jump in on the Republican side. I mean, I could support a Ben Carson because he's not an insider. I don't think he's really that subject to outside influence yet. I mean, I don't know. But Donald Trump definitely not. And he's been in business his whole career, and he's bought politicians, so he knows that game better than anybody. He knows it better than Ben Carson or any of the other candidates all over, because he's played that game. He told Hillary Clinton, you're coming to my wedding, and she came to his wedding. Why? It wasn't because he was a Democrat, and he's just kind of faking everyone into thinking he's a Republican. No, he owns the politicians that he paid money to, like the people that have paid Jeb Bush, the people that have paid Rubio. These people own them. They own them. And he's right. He's 100% right. And that's what I like about Trump is he has instincts. And his instincts are right because of his knowledge and his experience. He was right when they asked him this quick question. It wasn't trick, it was just quick. He didn't know he was going to get it about immigration. And then the moderator, it's got him right. Well, what do you can't split up families? You can't take the kids away from no, let's just send them all back. What? You can't what? And that just destroyed him because why? That was the right answer. His instinct gave him that answer. He hadn't planned for that.
That's the thing. He does seem to be sincere. He just says whatever he thinks. He doesn't
His instincts are right.
Well, yeah. I mean, I like him being that he's a businessman. So he has a business mind, and he runs businesses. He understands, and that's really the country has never had a businessman as president. If you think about it, not a true businessman.
It's because the political parties would destroy anybody. A businessman's not an inside politician. And he's a businessman to some extent, kind of like a Trump, maybe not his caliber, but they know the way the game's played, and they know politicians are their worst enemy. You have to pay off the politicians or you don't get anything done in business.
Yeah, so he's definitely, has a different mindset.
So businesses might have tried to run before, but they never got anywhere.
Right.
Because they were destroyed right off the bat, like they're trying to destroy Trump. But the problem is Trump's exposing everybody because he doesn't need their money. So that's something they've never run into before. Oh, my God. And they're all going nuts. And I look at the nuts. I go, wow, look at this devastation he's causing. Why? Because the nuts are so despicable. They don't know how to handle this. And all the pundits get on TV and all their theories and they're going to go out the window because this has never happened before.
Yeah,
Mr. Krautheimer, Mr. Rove, you big experts, this has never happened. So what are you talking about? And I love it because this country's broke. If we can get a couple things to happen, if we can get Trump in there and we can do away with the parties, we will go leaps and bounds to fixing this country. And I think the Democrats are in so much trouble they'll never admit to anything anyways, but they've lost 1,500 seats in this country, counting local elections and legislatures and governorships and all that stuff. 1,500 seats. So the liberal progressive movement has taken a big hit. But where they have been fairly successful is in the judiciary. And that's why we're having such problems with courts, because courts are totally out of control. And that fits the liberal agenda to have revolts and have everything in a turmoil, because that fits their whole agenda. That's what they want. That's what a community organizer wants, is he wants problems that he can ride in and fix. That's Obama's whole game plan. You know, he creates the problem, and then he's the only one that can fix it, you know. And what did he do as president, the first black president? First of all, he's not 100% black, so he's a fraud there too. But how did it work out for the blacks, having the first black president? They're marching in the streets, hands up, don't shoot. What do we want now? Dead cops. What's happened here? They've gone crazy because they thought they were taking over the country, I guess, because they had a black president. But now the black president has an agenda that comes forefront, and you can see his agenda, like, we're looking clear as day, and it's not support. And what has he done for him?
Well, yeah, I think, actually, I don't know.
They're worse off now than they ever were.
Well, I think some of these politicians, including Obama, are sometimes just very removed from what's really happening and how to set the policies, or what policies to set, what to do to really reach the people. I don't know if they understand the impact of what they're doing all of the time, if it's just incompetence and ignorance, or or they just know something was going to happen when they set a certain rule or law, and realizing it's not reaching the people in need. It's not helping the people. I mean, they're unaware. We have like 50% of Las Vegas that's like homeless right now. People are unaware due to how things have been going, all this part-time workers, and then when nobody can get full-time because they don't want to pay benefits, then the part-time workers, then they lose their jobs, then they don't get unemployment benefits, now they're on the street, all kinds of craziness going on, and then it trickles down. And that's why I say now we have a friend in the hospital. I'm sure that I bring that story up because I'm sure that is going to become more common than people realize, where you have people turning up in a hospital for any kind of medical emergency, and then you can't even have a friend be by their side in their moment in need.
The only thing that I rest back on, and I hope and pray
because of HIPAA laws
every day, that sooner or later, what goes around comes around, and people will start.
Yes,
to wake
yes,
up.
I'm like, that's what I said. I said, telling the nurse and the security officer
that this stuff doesn't work eventually.
Like, this is bad karma, because
right.
Eventually you're going to have a moment in need, and some twisted thing is going to happen, and you're not going to be able to
It affects everybody. They better wake up.
Yeah.
Now, it may not have affected you yet, but don't let our stories go to waste, because
You're next.
we're trying to wake you up and have you pay attention at least. You may not have an exact reason to get involved now, but you better get involved, because if we don't have a grassroots movement that stops all this cold, this country's going to go, like every other country preceded, off the cliff.
Yeah.
And we see that happening in Europe. We see all kinds of difficulties all over the world. And maybe the people that they seem insane to start with, that are talking about jumping that ship to go to Mars, maybe they're not as insane as we think they are. And now that they have flowing water up there and everything, wow, maybe they're ahead of the game, because this whole world that we live in may not
go to
be
another
around much
planet.
longer.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, there's so many other planets out there. There's no limit to them. So there's probably people just exactly like you and me sitting around a table doing exactly what we're doing right now, because there's no limit to how many possibilities there are. There's unlimited. So if you have no limit to something, there's going to be no limit to exactly what's going on here right now today, some other places. There's no limit to how many places there are. Because if there's a limit, what limits it?
Universe.
Well, what limits it? There is no limit. What could possibly limit what we're in? What are we in? We're in space. What limits space? Nothing. There's no wall.
The universe is abundant, and we need people
to connect. It could never
connect.
run out, because what's on the other side? There's nothing. So there's an unlimited amount of environments that are like this, because nothing stops space. It never ends. So there's no limit. There's absolutely no limit. It's limitless. So there is an unlimited amount of people just to look, even like you and me right now. There's an unlimited. You can't count them. It's uncountable. It's doing the same thing. But the nature of things is what happens, and we get back to our stories, are that every society crumbles under its own weight. And people either push the button, have a nuclear whatever, they advance to a certain stage where they can never get over the hump. For
Blockages,
ultimate
these rules and
survival.
stuff. They need just,
Or
yeah.
eventually some meteor comes from someplace, like it did, I guess, maybe to the dinosaurs or what have you, and wipes out everything living on Earth, or whatever planet we're talking about. So there's humps that there's disease, bubonic plague and all that. We've been fortunate enough thus far that we've been able to establish that we can beat some of that stuff. But for how long? Something eventually is going to get us. And we're being stupid if we allow ourselves to get us. But that's probably one of the most treacherous things that we have to deal with, are people. And then when you've got one of the parties trying to agenderize their education process, where they're purposely trying to dumb down half the people in this country, or all the people in this country, they're trying to dumb down. That's that thing I'm talking about from within. It's going to blow up the world. It's going to happen. And we can't let it happen. Or we have to fight to not let it happen. When people are saying 2 and 2 is 3, you got to say, wait a minute there, Joe, you're friggin' wrong. And, well, I think Trump's not serious. Screw you. What choice you got?
He looks pretty serious to me.
Who
He's
else
been
you
to all
got
the
out
debates.
there?
I mean,
All right, let's say Trump folds down tomorrow. Who are you going to support? So what are you talking about?
Well, it's a mute point.
As long
He
as
hasn't
Trump's
folded.
in there,
As long as he's
Trump's there, just truck along with him.
We'll talk about it if and when. If he's
Exactly.
not there, that's another. Then we'll deal with it at that time. Right now, he's running. That's where
But
we're
I
at.
think finally
So
that
it's a day by day thing
I've
here.
been fighting these liberal movements now for 40 years, I guess, when I woke up. And, I keep telling people I have dinners with my family and this and that. And we have arguments because there's some staunch liberals in there. And, they end up calling me names because that's when you've won the argument, when they start calling you names because you've beaten them on every point that they've made or tried to make. You've beaten them. So, eventually they just start calling names because they got nothing else they can say. What they've been saying makes no sense. And what these liberals have been saying forever make no sense. Look at Detroit. Look at California, what's going on there. Look at all these places that
It's
liberals
messy.
run.
I'm not sure what's going on.
And it falls down. They destroy everything they touch. I was asking Rolando in his show, name one thing that the liberal movement, I won't say fix because I got in a little problem there with saying fix because fix is a problem. When you fix something, you're not correcting it, you're controlling it, you're, changing the outcome. What have they ever done that corrected anything and made it better? Name one thing. Rolando couldn't name anything. What have they ever fixed? And here I go again. What have they ever created?
Well, I've lived many years in California, so I probably, I think they have compassion for. I don't know if they have answers necessarily, but I mean they have compassion for the homeless more and people needing help and also when Bush was in office they were a lot with the anti-war movements and whatnot. But the thing is, I don't think they're coming up with solutions.
They don't have solutions.
They don't have solutions.
Anything.
And what's happening when I go to
They
California,
have issues that they like to point out to because they're money raisers. The homeless, give me money, we'll take care of the homeless. Well, 90% of that money goes somewhere else, and the homeless would be lucky to get 10% of what's raised under the guise of their cause. Liberals love causes.
Right.
Global warming.
Well, that's like
That's
a business
just a
over
cause.
there.
It's a phony cause. It's not for real. And then you got a Bernie Sanders and a Hillary on stage the other night making global warming one of the main issues, the most important issue in this world right now is global warming. You have got to be kidding me. Are you that moronic? What are you talking about? We have people cutting off heads in the Mideast, and you're talking about global warming, which is what? Over the last 100 years, what is it? It may have gone up a half a degree or a tenth of a degree, and then lo and behold, it came back down a tenth of a degree. So what are you talking about? It's not an issue. It's a cause. It's a phony cause. And that's what liberals want, or a cause that they can get the money donations going.
Yeah, it
That's
winds
all
up
it's
being
about.
a money thing and
That's all it's
winds
about.
up being another business. I don't
That's
see,
that's
you know,
what
they
it
may
is.
go in with intentions, but it's, I just haven't seen them getting results, you know. And when I'm in California there, it's way overcrowded and it's just a lot of confusion.
Well, the expense to live in California keeps climbing up and up and up and up. And what's going to happen? Well, even now people are moving away from California because of the increase in all the costs it costs to live there, and the taxes and this and that. So people can migrate. When this country passes these stupid tax laws and everything, the billionaires, what do? They just say, you know what, keep my Social Security, because that's the only thing they give up. They take their money and they go somewhere else. Well, they don't have to take their buildings and take all this stuff. They just say, keep my Social Security. If you're a billionaire, that's all they got over you is your Social Security. And that's how they try to control you. But when you got that much, you just go somewhere. Now, the people can come back and go whenever they want. They don't have to be a U.S. citizen to come and go. They can move to Switzerland. They can move anywhere and come and go. Why would they pay taxes 39, 40%? That's projected under Bernie Sanders to go to 92. Are you crazy? I heard stories, and I think they're true. England raised their tax rates to like 85% at one point. And all the successful people that created jobs and whatever, they sold their companies and they bought a Rolls Royce. And they just drove around the country, looked at the whatever. They quit work and drove around, you know. And then the country collapsed. Their economy went down, so they had to lower the rate. I think I heard down to like 7% or something like that to correct the situation. And then the guys that knew how to do things got tired of driving around or whatever, but now they had something else to do, so they sold their Rolls Royces and went back into business. And then the economy came back up. So you can't regulate devastation, because some people are going to beat you at your own game because they're not going to do that. You can't do that. And that's the problem with Congress and everything. They think they can pass these laws that are unenforceable. And every time they do something, they usually have the opposite reaction. So they think they're going to get more money and they get less money. I think Reagan proved that by lowering taxes. What happened? Revenue went up. What? The libs still don't understand that one. They say, well, we tried that trickle down. That didn't ever work, is what they say. But they're like the people in court that have your case. They lie. They lie. They say things that aren't true. And nobody calls them accountable for it because the media will never hold them accountable. I was telling with somebody the other day, the cycles in this country go like this. You end up with a Democrat in the White House. He may last 8 years. But while he's in there, the media doesn't say anything about him. No matter what devastation that person causes, media never reports anything. For example, Obama never got accounted for anything that he did. He got a cakewalk on everything. But now the people see. They see, problem. So now they're going to vote in somebody on the other side. So now when that person takes over, being a conservative, whatever, putting in things that work, they may work, but what happens now, the media kicks in, and the media starts devastating and lying about things, misreporting what works, saying it doesn't work, and then after 8 years, this person like Bush has been devastated by all the false media that's been put out there. Now you go through another one of these cycles where the dumb voter listens to the media and says, okay, things are good, so they're not upset about things being good. They've just listened to the lies.
Yeah,
so
that's what I've been talking about. We have to hold them accountable.
Liberal. And then now they go through devastation. Then they get to see, and then they cycle back again. Well, that's why we need to get rid of the media is one thing, and you can't get rid of the media per se, but you have to get rid of the lies. And when the media makes a lie, you have to expose it for what it is.
Well, and that's why I'm kind of following Trump and Jesse Ventura too, to see if they help do something or what they're going to do with my case. It's sitting there with the Supreme Court. It has to do with, holding the media accountable for what they're saying and what they're doing. They can't,
That's almost as like holding the government accountable for something, because the media is very, very powerful. And thank God, it used to be thank God for Fox News. At least we were getting some media out there. that was at least fair and balanced, as they say. But I question that Megyn Kelly thing and everything else that happened when they finally got to do a debate for the first time ever that wasn't a CNN controlled, the Clinton network, news network, you know, and I just couldn't understand. I watched that debate and I thought CNN somehow took over the debate there for a while. I couldn't figure it out because Fox News had been bought off. Now that morning I was hearing things from commentators saying that orders have come down from the money people in the Republican Party that are controlling these puppets, like their little Rubios and their Cruzes and the Bushes. You get Trump now. We want Trump out. Well, everybody was too afraid to do that on the puppet side, you know, so they didn't do it.
Well, they've been attacking
They bought
him.
off Megyn Kelly. They bought off her, and she's the one that went out and attacked Trump right off the get-go. So she got bought off. And Trump knows she got bought off, and Trump made his points, and Maggie Kelly had to take a week off or something or whatever. You don't know the truth, what happened, but something happened there because she took him on. Everyone that takes on Trump falls on their face because they're not taking him on from truth. They're taking him on from lies and distortions, and they're not the productive thing to do. So the truth's always going to come out. And that's what I love about the guy. I mean, love him or hate him, whatever, he's what this country needs. And my biggest thing is he can't be bought. That's number one with me, always will be. I don't care what else he does. And how is he going to fail when he can't be bought? How's he going to fail? The failures come from the special interest.
He needs to work on being a little more diplomatic.
Oh, why? Did you hurt your feelings with this bullshit? He needs to straighten this country out is what he needs to do.
Because on the
That's
air
the
you
most
can't
important
say
thing.
I know, but you can't say swear words on the news and on the air. Like sometimes, you know, he'll blurt out something he just speaks his mind, but you can't say certain things,
Why?
You know, on the
Sticks
air.
and stones? Why? Are you politically correct now?
Because it's the mainstream news. You're not supposed to have profanity. You're not, you know.
Who says?
Well, I think they have rules. Actually, the FCC. They have, you know, they're supposed to say swear words. For example,
That's why they have the 7-second delay. Because people say things, so
well,
get over it.
I've heard him say stuff. They didn't catch it and they didn't remove it.
Well,
but it's
that's
just,
fine. So,
you know.
so what? That's the environment we live in today. Just don't make it an issue. Get over it. That happens.
Well,
Shit
no. If you have
happens.
rules, then you certain.
The rules have been broken though for so long. It's going to take a guy that doesn't worry about being politically correct.
the bigger
He's
evil.
not some guy that goes out there and swears all over the place.
The bigger wrong was not would if you dig down as to why Trump will say what he says, you realize
somebody
that
probably
he's
said a lot
actually
worse against him.
he's actually in the right, and you realize that he's the correct. But you know, still sometimes strategically or you know, saying things in a politically correct way, you know, so he needs to maybe work on that. But you know, maybe it's a difficult situation,
I can't see,
and he definitely has been attacked, you know,
see,
because he's getting attacked. So when you're attacked, you attack back, and that's just the way.
And he's a leader.
You know,
he may draw a line in the sand, and that's a line in the sand, and you better believe it. You cross over that, you're going to have the price to pay, and that's what we need for a leader, and that's what this country needs. Can you ever see him bowing down to some leader of another country? I can't even fathom it. It will never, ever happen. Obama can't wait to do that. Because why? Because deep down in him, he thinks America's wrong. He thinks he's been wronged his whole life here. Michelle Obama, for the first time in my life, I'm proud to be an American. I mean, where do these people come from? They're ideologues that are just distorted in their views, you know? They're mixed up people. Now, I think that the liberals are several different breeds of people. I think that real people that know the way things are done have bought the liberals to a certain extent, like a Soros, a George Soros. He's a despicable crook is what that guy is. He's made billions of dollars by manipulating governments. And he knows what's going to happen in the governments before they happen because he's manipulated them. So he'll sell something short, and he makes billions and billions of dollars doing that. And then with that money, he buys off more people to do the same thing over and over again. He's despicable. He lies to people, but he buys them. Then I think you've got the ideologues that just think that they're black or what have you. For one example, I'm not racist, but there's blacks today that think that they had it so bad during the slavery times that the United States owes them something. And when I'm driving down the street, I can be at a red light and here's some black guy sitting in a brand new $200,000 Mercedes. And I go, oh, that's one of those people that need reparations, I guess. He's got it so bad. And then just to be a vicious racist like I tend to be, although I'm not. When where were they before? When they got on the slave ships, they were over there in Africa being eaten by lions. Do they have it so bad over here?
Well, yeah, I don't.
I mean, that's going over the top, but I'm trying to prove a point. What's so bad? We ended up straightening out the situation with slavery. No, who else would do that in the world? There's slaveries all over the world right now. America straightened it out. So what's so bad? And what do we owe you having straightened out a wrong? Why do we owe anything?
Well,
we're the ones that straightened it out.
Yeah, I don't think that's the issue. Although you're right, I think
Well,
some of
it's an
them
issue
cry.
to some of them.
Well, they're
And then-
struggling, but the reality is a lot of us are struggling, and I don't think that's the core issue. It's just
Well,
something
it's
an excuse
muddy
for
because,
but they're not sure why they're struggling and they have
that
issues
action that,
and problems. But I don't think it's racism. I think it's policies
Well, it never
that are
was
screwed
racism. I
up.
think
It was
racism
it's
we
not.
pretty much had beaten before Obama came in office.
Yeah, there
There
was never.
wasn't any.
I don't think
Now
that's
there
what we're
is.
fighting. And
now
I
there is, because he's making it a racist problem. Well, if I had a son, he would look like Trevor Martin. And then he has the beer summit, where the cops acted stupidly because they talked to a black guy trying to break into a house. It turned out it was his own house, but the cops acted stupidly. He makes these statements that are racist.
But yeah, I think it's a non-issue, and he
So,
just doesn't
right.
know. It has to do. It's just not.
And
It's
when he
not what
goes
we're
around
fighting,
the
and I
world
think
and
they
apologizes for America. Who else has kept this world going? I mean, we would be under Hitler's regime. We'd be under something else that was happening that we corrected. I mean, we have always been there with our money, our support. When tsunamis come in, when there's devastation, wherever it is, America's the number one leader there, taking care of things. Who else? What is so bad about us?
Well, what we're fighting is your initial conversation with the lawyers and the judge. There's issues with the pay off the parties and stuff. I don't personally believe there's a racism issue. I think but it may be masked to look that way to some people, but I don't think they know what they're fighting, and that's not what they're fighting. I think we're fighting. We talk about a bank bailout, and they have like millions or billions of dollars. But not even a penny of that went to the homeowners here.
Well, everything that
went
Obama
to
did since he was in office.
Attorney General Administration
and this is why
Office.
he's under control of somebody that's pulling the strings, a Soros or somebody, is because everything he's done without fail since he's been in power is 180 degrees in the wrong direction. Now, a kindergarten student could have had his job and used the theory of flipping a coin. And what to do? Well, 50% of the time, on average, the guy's going to be right. Obama's never been right. Everything he's done, verbatim, is destructive for this country. Somebody pull it, oh, he's so smart because he's doing his agenda. No, he's doing someone else's agenda. Dumb man. Because if he loses his teleprompter, you ever noticed that? He's had a couple instances where his teleprompter, and he's a bloated idiot. He can't say anything. Somebody's pulling Obama's strings, and I've always known that. Recently, 180.
No, it's hard to say what's going.
Everything like bailing out the insurance company. G&G. How did Obamacare work out? Oh, everything there and do something with Cuba. When was Cuba ever an issue? For the last 50 years, we had them embargoed. So what? Why all of a sudden he's making some political statement to somebody that's controlling the strings?
Well,
It's
things
weird.
might be more complicated than we're aware of. We know that
true.
something is not going well. We don't necessarily know the solution, but it's hard to say if it's Obama or where like I said, if they know or understand what they're doing, they may believe in that, some of the things they're doing or policies are reaching the people and helping when they're not, and they're just not in touch. They don't really realize what's actually happening. And so we just know that we need to make some changes. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Well,
And
hopefully, because we can have
do
seen
something
for the
different,
last
you
7
know,
years,
so-
because the cycles I was talking about earlier, people got to see. And I think the last 2 election cycles we had with Congress and the Senate has proved something's happening, 1,500 seats down from these liberals, so there's being changes made. Obama somehow got elected because of a combination of events that were kind of suspicious and otherwise. I mean, Benghazi, that was right around election time, and that was all a lie perpetrated by the liberals to protect Obama and the media. And then you had Sandy Hook, where he's over there hugging her, Christie's hugging him, or whatever the hell that deal was.
There's a lot of media events.
And Romney was not to be seen because, how's he going to go in there and fight that when Christie's got his hand out? Romney wasn't going to give him the money, so it's a no-win situation, and that was just the luck of the draw. So he somehow sneaked back in office, and then you have the media like Crowley protecting him on that question when Obama's there. Get the tape, get the tape, get the tape. How did he know she had a tape? What is he talking about? It all stinks. It all stinks. But Romney wasn't a Trump. He was weak. And I always knew he was too nice of a guy, Romney. He's too nice of a guy. He can't be president. You got to be somebody like knows what's going on and not going to bow down.
Well, I didn't like him. He sounded too typical Republican to me, for example, was supporting the wars and stuff. Now, at least Trump is asking questions, and I thought it was really interesting, initially they opened up that debate and they were saying, well, do we want to put our weapons in his hands when he talks? They think he's a little crazy sometimes the way he presents himself, and that's what I'm talking about, diplomacy. But the reality is Trump was the only one on that panel who was talking about getting along with the other leaders, talking to them, trying to negotiate, trying to work things out. And he is a businessman, and that's what businessmen do. And so that's what I'm saying. That people need to look at him a little bit further for those that are not liking the outer surface of maybe what they see in Trump, or they hear a swear word or something, but look at what he's saying, and you might realize that sometimes it's a business deal that brings about the peace. It's like why is there a war? Usually some kind of resources.
The respect of this country, and business-wise, he will the art of the deal, or whatever.
The art of the deal, yeah.
He will get,
so it's like, well, why are these terrorists? What is it that they're missing?
Why do we negotiate?
Why do
Why? Where does the power come that makes them bring us to a negotiation? Why? We had them embargoed off. We had sanctions against them. They were losing big time. They were being hurt left and right. Why? What do we have to do with them? Why are we
I
negotiating?
don't know why we're involved with
no
Iran. We don't
for
need
it.
to be.
There's no reason for it.
Right.
And if they have 4 hostages of us, why would he even sit down and even open a dialogue of anything till they release the hostages? It doesn't make any sense. But you got Kerry, Lurch, and you got the most incompetent people over there doing it. And they're doing it for some political agenda controlled by who's ever controlling their puppets, which is only interested in devastation. Has to be. Nothing makes sense. So this is why we needed Trump, because we have an opportunity here to straighten out the world and us in the process. And that's why I'm so for him. I don't know if you got to hear what he said over there at the Treasure Island that day, but he gave an example of how the Chinese deal. He says they're very smart people. The leader, whoever it may be, it doesn't have to be the leader of the country, but whatever business deal he's working on, the head honcho will show up. He has 25 people with him. And these 25 people are all geniuses. Their IQs are off the chart. These are all qualified people. And he says, I sit down with them and so forth. That's what you notice. These are all qualified people. And they don't come in, and then he's such a showman in a way, because he just presents everything. You should look around saying, they don't come in and say, oh, it's such a lovely day outside. Did you see that lovely thing? Did you? No, they come in, we don't like the lease. That's the first words out of their mouth. We're going to change the lease. That's the way they do. They're business.
Oh, they're his tenants.
Yeah, whatever it is, whatever he's negotiating.
Yeah.
We don't like the contract, whatever it is. They're all business all the time, and they're all smart people. We have a bunch of idiots in this country. I mean, he said back in whenever it was, that Rolando was talking about today in 88 or 98, he said a statement that if he ever runs for president, he's going to run as a Republican because they're stupid people. And they're easy to beat, But think about it. He's right. And he hasn't changed his position. He's saying the same thing today. And he's right.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Republicans, to me, with the exception of, I guess, Ron Paul when he was running, they just talk war, and no solutions to it. And I think that's, that Trump is the one he's the only one talking about solutions or doing something different on that panel.
His answer to the wars and everything is we build a defense to where nobody would dare screw with us.
Well, yeah,
and
you
then
start
we
dealing.
don't need our defense because nobody will come after us ever. I'm going to build this country up militarily wise and nobody would ever screw with us. Well, and that's the way you take care of wars.
But also, he's talking about going in and talking to the leaders and making business deals.
That's
What's
true.
the problem? They get in there and find out what is the real problem here. What are we talking about?
Nobody's going to screw with you. And he's right. Now, what I liked about what I thought Bush was doing, and I think I know what I'm talking about, but nobody will
just
say this.
Just protect our borders.
Nobody
He's talking
will
about
say
making a
this.
wall.
When Saddam went in and took over Kuwait, okay, we went in there and threw him out of Kuwait, okay? It took whatever it took. We threw him out of there, and I guess it was his father didn't go on into Baghdad and do that stuff. Now, when the bombers came in and blew up our towers and whatever, we went and decimated the Taliban through Bush. Short order, like 3 weeks they were living in the hills and caves and stuff. We got them out of Afghanistan. They were gone. They were fleeing, whatever. We might not have killed Osama bin Laden right off the bat, but, they took off. And we decimated them. Now, that happened quick, and Bush probably thought, all right, we got to stop this crap. We don't want people bombing our buildings. So what do? We have to pick on somebody to make a thing to the world, screw with us, and we're going to get you. So who do we pick on? The Taliban's gone. Who do we pick on? Saddam Hussein. So let's go pick on him. We picked on him. He was dangling at the end of the rope on pretty short order. And that sent a message to the world because nobody screwed with us after that. Jeb Bush is right. He kept us safe because of his policy. He showed the world, screw with us and we're going to screw with you. Now, the Democrats and the liberals, they wouldn't let him go beyond that. And we stayed where we should have got out. We should have got Saddam dangling and we should have left. We can't get involved in civil wars. But the Democrats like those civil wars because they're turmoil, they're divisive, they divide the country, they divide the people. So it's the liberals that want the wars. They lie about it, but that's the ones that want it. And that's the one because you couldn't get anything through Congress, you couldn't get anything. You couldn't get.
I don't think we need to be anywhere in the world.
But
I think it's all business deals. I think they're involved. It's money. I don't think we need to be going anywhere. I like it. I mean, we can put people at the borders if we want to protect America. How are we protecting America by having troops
do a very good job
in 9/11, right?
The terrorists.
Yeah, no, we can. But I'll tell you, this wall, though, yeah,
but
somebody.
You have to send a message.
Trump talking about extending and building the wall at Mexico. One of my friends was telling me that he had driven to, it's kind of new, just in the last 3 or 4 years. They apparently have a big 20-foot wall on the border of Mexico, and people are kind of afraid of it, where they're not coming and going the way they used to. It's very intimidating. Apparently they have security and people with guns at the walls, and it's not just a gate that you can see through. It's a like a wall that you can't see through the wall. You can't see the other side of the
Great Wall of China is like what, 1,300?
But when you drive through, somehow the wall opens up and then opens down after they check your ID and everything. Right. It's very intimidating because it's like you're not coming in or you're not leaving.
We can beat these people coming into this country illegally. We can beat that, no problem. The problem is the liberals don't want to beat it because they want bodies. And why do they want bodies? These people aren't necessarily voters. They don't have to be. All they have to be is counted on the census. So all these kiddies on top of trains and everything coming into this country, migrating to wherever they migrate, on the census they go as bodies. And the population of the states is what dictates how many electoral votes go to that state. So you can have 40% of a state as illegal aliens, it doesn't matter. 40% of the population is going to make the electoral votes go their way. Then all they have to do is win the electoral votes by a popular vote. That's, they bring in their voters on buses and illegals or what have you. They'll get the vote, they'll fix that, and then the bodies are what counts. So that's what it's all about. It's all about votes. We can build a wall. There's no trouble there. That's nothing.
Yeah, it's peanuts, really, if it's effective.
Peanuts. But you know what? Mexico will pay for it.
Well, that's where Trump was saying
I
that.
guarantee you, if he tells Mexico to pay for that wall, guess what? Mexico's going to pay for that wall.
And apparently, I think it might be hurting tourism to Mexico, because I think people are not going over there. They're kind of afraid,
Good,
Yeah.
because then when you're having these issues, that's why they'll pay for the wall. Why? To get the tourists back and become part of America again, to where they're a friendly place. And Mexico has their own problems. I'd say we're not going there not because of the Mexicos per se. We're not going there because of the drug cartels that are killing everybody in sight. And they'll kidnap somebody, a wealthy tourist or whatever. I mean, these people are vicious. They're not the government you're dealing with. In a way they are, but I mean, it's, and Mexico's corrupt. And there's a lot of issues there. But a wall sends them a message. And you want to be in this world, you're going to pay for the wall. When you build a wall between you and your neighbor, you usually split it. Right? I mean, and if you're building
I don't know,
a wall,
but apparently that wall is having an impact more than you would think. I mean, just a wall,
You're right.
but it's apparently it's intimidating,
and it's nothing yet.
and people are
When
not able to go
Trump
past
gets
that
through,
wall.
He says there's not going to be a wall. You can go to Home Depot and get a ladder and get over it. It's going to be a wall.
Yeah,
I guarantee you that.
yeah.
I'll tell you that it's going to be a wall. And and he builds 95 skyscrapers. He can build a wall. He says to Bill O'Reilly, he said one time, this wall is not 98% that it's going to be built. It's 100%. He said, this wall's nothing. And he said, and Mexico's going to pay for it. And that's 100%. And he's right. Because he's a man that's a leader, and he's a man with a plan, and he follows through on his plans. That's what he's after. He wants to make America great again. And then what kind of a legacy could anyone have? Jesus, that's what he wants. He'll be a hero. And that's fine.
See what he does.
Then after 8 years or 4 years or whatever, he might have an heir apparent. He can go back to his golf courses and live the life of Riley, if you will. And he will deserve it. Obama, we need to get him the hell out of the country. We need to send him back from wherever he came from. He's been devastating to this country. And then I was hearing things today that, when Trump says that your brother or Bush didn't protect the country, a guy was on the radio today saying, he devastated the country. Why? Because Obama came into office after Bush. And look at the devastation we've been through.
Well, I think there have been
He
problems
didn't keep us safe.
There have been problems with both of them. One of the things I don't understand is why we vote in presidents twice. I mean, I vote for them, but I mean, if there's problems, we vote them in again, and
Mexico
even
has a
we do that
6-year
all the
deal.
time.
Mexico
all the
has a
presidents
6-year deal, 4 years,
Because sometimes
I think-
you really don't know what's going to happen with these people.
Yeah,
And Trump
4
either. We don't know what
years,
he's going to do.
If it's the wrong person, 4
it sounds
years might
good,
be
but-
too long.
Well, right, but what seems like we always vote in the presidents twice. They get 2 terms. Why do the people
Well,
do that when
because
things are not going well? And both times things are not going well, we vote them in again. I'm like, what are we doing?
Well, if we didn't have the 2-term limit, because of the power that the president has, because of his position,
they have power over the media and all,
he
don't
can
they?
fix that 2nd term. Most of the time, it's fixed.
They must be, because
Yeah,
how,
I would say,
after all
to
that,
go
how
to your
did Bush
point.
get voted in twice? And then Obama got voted in twice. I couldn't understand. I mean, I'll give people, I voted Obama the first time, but, once you see, I don't know, you don't know what's gonna. You give everyone a chance, but once you see things are
Yeah,
not
it's
going
the-
very
it's the
well,
two-term,
you know, why
it's
do we
the-
keep voting in people?
It's the power
Maybe they do
of
have
the
the power.
president.
Yeah, they can
do.
vote themselves in.
And they
Apparently,
can get the voting machines that are given to them from Chavez.
They
and the
figure out how to
socialists. That's who
keep-
built the voting machines. You think they're not?
so
crooked?
whoever we vote in, expect 8 years because
we
they're gonna
bought
take
the
over.
voting machines from a dictator that knows how to fix elections.
Yeah.
He won his last election 105%. And we buy the voting machines. Come on, you know.
Well, so now we're going into a new election where the president cannot be voted in, and so I guess we have another chance to try somebody new and see what happens. But
all right. Well, this
anyway.
is Clark with the Herd.